Hey everybody. Well, it's 1 o'clock. It's Monday, so I am here. And for the record, I'm very tired. I've been up since 4 o'clock this morning. So hopefully this one might be short and sweet today, but we're going to talk about working on the crochet frog body and then start doing some of the extra pieces that you will attach to the body. So here's my frog. He says hi. Um, and I've been working on two different frogs. I've been trying to pace it out a little bit so I have something to talk about and not everything is done by the time I get to you and show up here. This guy, we all know he's done. You've seen him before. But I have this guy right here. He's a similar color, but this is the one that I started last week with the Big Twist acrylic yarn, this stuff, which you can find at Joann's, and a lot of times they have, especially because I think they're having some financial issues, you can get it on sale. So if you're looking for some cheap yarn, Big Twist is a great one. However, like I said last time, I had to go, down crochet hook size. So now that I'm flinging safety eyes all over my house, we can go ahead and get started. So this is the guy I started last week. We did the eye bumps and the top of the head. Hi, everybody. So what I had done since then is we had connected in the round and I did 21 rows of just plain crochet. So right here you can see I love using locking stitch markers. It helps me keep track of things, and I'm the type of neurospicy that will get distracted in the middle of a thought or the middle of a row and forget what I was doing, and then maybe have to go back and rip things out. So this helps me keep track of how many rows I've done. So usually what I'll do is I'll start with like an anchor stitch marker down here, and then when I'm doing plain rows, I'll go ahead and take a second stitch marker, and then I'll just keep moving up the row so I can easily see how many rows I've done and count that. So I did the plain rows, and then I started to decrease. So where I'm at right now in the pattern is where you would start to stuff the frog. So I have some stuffing here, and this is a good size for you to start stuffing and really decide like how dense you're gonna want this to be. I'm also, while working on this, I'm simultaneously working on the big guy, which might be a little bit more difficult to see because he's really big. So this is the one that I have been working on that is worsted weights. I believe this is a Karen Pound of Love, and I'm holding it double and crocheting it on the eye hook. So I had started this one last week as well. This is probably a better way to see it. So he's stuffed. He's pretty dense, but still squishy. So, you want to make sure that they're cozy and squishable. So I went ahead and I did my decreases and fastened it off at the end. So as you can see, here's the size difference between these two guys right here. So for those of you who are new to crochet and haven't done it before, I'm going to assume that many of the people who are probably looking at this know how to crochet, but just in case, when you're working in the pattern, when it tells you to do 2 single crochets in 1 stitch, obviously that speaks for itself. To do single crochet 2 together, for those that don't know, you're going to want to go into your first stitch and pull up a loop, and then go into your second stitch and pull up a loop. So that's what your crochet hook looks like. And then you're going to yarn over and you're going to pull through both. And that's your single crochet 2 together. And you're going to work in pattern in the round, just like you did when you were working these 2 eye bumps and the top of the head. So you'll do the decreases down to the peak. And then once you do that, I mean, obviously you'll stuff it when you get to about 30 stitches in the round. You could probably decrease it to 24. I wouldn't go past 24 because then you're going to start running out of real estate to be able to shove all that polyfill in if that's what you're using. So make sure you leave enough room so you can shove it in. And you know, if you need to take usually these polyfill bags come with like a stuffing stick or you can use a straw or what have you to jam in there to make sure that you can fill the eye bumps for your frog. So this is what the guy looks like finished and bound off at the end. I wove the end of my yarn around the bottom here, and then I sort of fed it through up through the back. I left it here just so you can see. I mean, there's not a whole lot of tying knots, but if you feel like tying a knot and then popping it back in, you can do that as well. I just left it hanging just so I could show you. And then the next part, after you've stuffed it and you feel good about it, you're going to start working on the facial structures. So to do that, you're going to work it just like you would the round. And for those of you who might be altering these patterns, a good rule of thumb is if, let's say, you decide, you know enough about crochet, you decide you're going to make the eye bumps 36 stitches in the round because you don't want to hold your yarn double or something and you want to make it bigger. So you're going to do 36 in the round, and let's say the center you're going to do, I don't know, 30 in the round. So you have that. The rule of thumb for the face portion, this bump right here, is I would say if you're going to crochet this, crochet it in the round and make it the same amount of stitches as the circumference of the frame. How to do that, and I'm actually going to use this guy as an example, is you make your round and you'll have the bind off like on a side here. Here's a good example. And a lot of times I use my ends to go ahead and stitch it together. So what I would recommend as you're working on the face is I would recommend starting on an end on the side where you have your tails and stitching around the top first. So just in one great big arc around the top. You want it to extend almost the diameter of the body as close as you can to it. Obviously, you're going to be stuffing it too. So you'll close up this top end. And as you can see from this guy, I took the top as a gauge, top of his head. And when I started to join, I went down a couple rows and I went across the top. And this will help you get like a good oval shape. Start around the top. And then if you feel the need, you can start stuffing it. I like to come down in a diagonal a few rows, the side here, and find a good row that's not the complete round, but sort of smushing it. And then stitch it across the bottom and then go up in a diagonal here. So in order to get that good oval face shape, just shape it from the top first and then go down in just a short diagonal here and then across one of these rows. And if you are crocheting with into the back loops and you have these ridges, it makes it super easy to figure out your row and just stitch right across it. And for this particular frog, I just whip stitched it. So it was super easy to do. So with that being said, that's going to be the first thing we do. And I can go ahead and hopefully I have a needle. But so when you're going to put this together here, and I think I lost my needle. Oops. and you have this guy. Once you have the face intact, then what you're going to end up doing is, let's see if I have a big enough needle in here. What you're going to end up doing then next are the eyes. And everything in this pattern is basically a circle. You're going to work in the round for nearly every piece. Actually, probably every piece of this. I somehow lost my needles. That's not good. So, oh, wait, here it is. All right. So here's a plastic needle. And for this particular one, because I have the two ends here, I'm just going to use one to sew it. You know, you don't need to be fancy. And honestly, you really can't screw up too bad. I've seen a lot of people make these online, on Ravelry and things like that. And they all turn out really cute. So, I mean, if you like the way it looks, it's going to be super easy for you. Okay, so here's my end right there. Sorry, I'm getting used to the camera. And I'll just go ahead and start like really whip stitching it and attaching it. And I mean, I shape it as I go along. Super easy. It's really easy to attach these. Nobody really notices if you have any like weird things going on with it. And for this particular one, I'm actually going to do like 3 stitches right up in a row. We'll see how this guy looks. Because I also noticed too, as I was doing pieces and flipping back and forth between the small frog and the larger frog, that my gauge was kind of all over the place. And that's okay too, because sometimes life is stressful and you might be crocheting a lot tighter than you would usually. So, you know, it'll be cute in the end regardless. So you would go ahead and whip stitch all the way around the top and then do the bottom underneath. And what I did for this particular one, and I'll actually show it in camera here because it might be a little bit easier to see it in full. I have these stitch markers sort of attaching it to the face. I use the top as a guide, so I know that these stitch markers here, for example, at the top of the head, that's going to be the row that I'm sewing to. Now, I'm not married to the ones at the bottom. Oh, thank you, Nicole. So that's why I picked it. I just didn't know where it was. Anyway, so these 2 stitch markers can move. And like I said, you're going to want to make it so that, ooh, I just broke that one. Whoopsies. And that's the good thing about these locking stitch markers. You can usually buy them in bulk, like a couple hundred. And I lose stitch markers constantly. I find them all over the house. I'm really bad with that sort of thing. So if you break them or lose them, you don't feel bad, like, you know, if you have a fancy stitch marker or something. So anyway, so I took these 2 bottom stitch markers off because then what I can do is once I have the top of the face attached, I can sort of arc it up and do a little stuffing and decide which one of these rows I'm going to want to attach the bottom of this to. Also, as a guide, and you can probably see it a little bit from here, when you're working in the round, it's a little bit like geometry, right? So you increase every 6 inches or 6 stitches. So when you're doing your increases in crochet, you're going to start to see these like spokes, right? Like a star. So one of the ways that I'll visually gauge how I should be attaching things is to use those points. So the 2 points on the side, those are going to be where I want to make sure roughly they're in the same place, the same row, and attached to the head. But then, you know, and once this is attached to the top, and it'll be attached straight across a row. Then I can take this and I can start squeezing it in, and I can decide how I want to, form it so it has more depth, right? So you can see it pop out and it's coming at you in 3D. And the thing is, don't worry if the end of your face wants to do this. Once you start tacking it down and it's stuffed, you're not going to see wrinkles. Like, it'll be full and you won't see any of the wrinkles in the face. And you can see where my spokes are here too. That's what I use as a guide. So once you have that attached, the next piece is the lips. So pretty straightforward when you're making the lips. What I did in the original pattern, and I'm actually trying to come up with variations on stuff. So if people want to adjust the pattern in any way, or they want more texture or things like that, I'm trying to think about that so I can update the pattern and then put those things out there. It's been a little bit of time since I've written a pattern, so I think it'll be a good thing for me to practice on. So as an example, here are the lips that I made for the big frog. Now, I don't know how easy it is to see, but the original pattern calls for you to go ahead and chain 40 and fasten off. That's it. So when you're looking at this frog right here, this is just a chain that's been folded in half like this and attached to the face, his lips. Okay. Because I started working this particular piece on the larger frog first instead of doing it on the small frog, because obviously you can see this is where I ended with the small frog. I didn't feel as though the lips were going to be prominent enough, because in the cartoon in Over the Garden Wall, he's got like real pouty, like somebody got collagen, right? So because this is a smaller toy, the chain is, all that you really need for a face this small. It's like less, obviously you can see it's like smaller than the size of my hand, right? For this guy, who's massive, so massive I can't get him in my camera, I felt like he was going to need more. So what I ended up doing, because everything for this particular toy has been doubled in yarn size, I took another color of the Caron Pound of Love worsted weight yarn, which is slightly thicker than the Big Twist. And what I did was I chained 40 stitches like the pattern called for. And then I went back in to that same chain and did slip stitches all the way across the 40 stitches. So when you're doing something like this, here's where I started, and you do your chains, add a little extra, you probably need one extra chain at the end. So you would do like a chain of 41 and then go back into the 40th stitch and then do your slip stitches all the way across, and you'll end up with this thicker piece here. So what you'll end up doing when you attach it to the face is you can attach it in the circle if you want. You can stitch it together in the back and then put it on. And in some cases, like me just flipping this over, if I didn't have this weird stitch right here, I would say that might be a cool way to actually put that on his mouth too, because it's got this cool texture on the back and it actually domes out. But for this guy, I'm probably going to do the side that looks a little cleaner. That's the cool thing about crocheting toys. You can kind of like wing it, and if you want to change something, you can. So I can talk more about that when we get to, not today, but in the future, probably next week, when we talk about the piece on the back. I'm trying to redesign this back piece so that there's more texture. I haven't quite figured it out yet. That's a job for this week to figure that out. But anyway, so I would put this together and I would position it on the face, and then you just whip stitch it on. So it makes it super easy. So that's these two pieces right here. And you can position his mouth wherever you want to, but like in the cartoon, his mouth's up pretty high. So you'll want to aim for above the center round, and that's where you can then attach the mouth. And I attach the mouth after he's already had this piece, I guess we could call it his muzzle, this piece stuffed and sewn shut. Then I attach this. And there are easy ways to sew it and make it so it isn't showing. So then we'll have that. And then for the next piece, what we'll do is, and I already made these two, are the eyes. Same principle as the circles for the bumps here and the top of the head. You're going to make an amigurumi ring, and you'll go ahead and put the eyes together. So I did finish the eyes for this, but I can show you on the smaller frog how to go ahead and do the amigurumi. Oh my gosh, like he looks like he has a personality now. So I can show you on the smaller one. Let me grab my white yarn here. Again, this is the Big Twist from Joann's. And because my little guy here is smaller, we're using the F hook. Okay. So what you'll do, again, because you know this is my favorite thing to do, is the amigurumi ring. Wrap it around twice, and then I stick this through, pull up a little loop there, pinch it with my fingers. Sometimes I just like tussle it a little bit so it's not all twisty. And then I put these two fingers in here and I'll start to go. Now, of course, I mentioned last time I like to do a little extra stitch there. So technically there's 7 stitches in this ring, but we're not going to tell anybody. Anyway, so go through, bring up a stitch. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So there's my 6 stitches. Again, just untwist it a little bit. Here's your little end. Tug, give it a little tug. See which circle it's going to pull. The one that goes in, that's the one you're going to pull first to tighten it up. So there we go. We tighten that up and then pull that. Now, this is going to be a do as I say and not as I do. Because I realized when I was making these big old eyes for this guy, oh, that's kind of fun too. Anyway, when I was making these big old eyes, I crocheted my amigurumi ring and I pulled it too tight. So the fun part that you don't get to see is me fighting with these eyeballs, trying so hard to get the safety eyes through them because I pulled the string too tight. So I had to go in with my hook and try to like shimmy it open with the hook. So let's say that you accidentally crocheted your ring too tight. So here's my little ring. And I pulled it too tight and now I'm in trouble because I can't fit my safety eye through it. What I did once it was done and fastened off, I shoved my hook in there to the point where you have this wide bit and literally just started spinning it. So, and see, I made a bigger hole there. For those of you who are not fans of the amigurumi ring, It's not good for everything. Um, for this, it's fine. You're putting a safety eye in there, so honestly, it's not going to come apart. If you're worried about your amigurumi rings coming apart, because sometimes people will only wrap it around their fingers once and then start to do their stitches. And I've done that for granny squares in the past and had them come apart. So I've found that wrapping it around twice seems to hold it in place. But if you're a little paranoid about it and you really want to make sure that your stuff's going to stay together, knot it on the inside. Nobody's going to see it and they'll never know. So you can do that. With the safety eyes, I find that the actual act of putting one of these safety eyes in here and then pressing it with the back. Oh, let's see if I can get this in here. See, I tightened it up again. And it's not done, but so when you're putting the safety eye in and then you're sticking the back on, in general, that will cinch it tight enough that you won't have a problem with the end wiggling out. And then what you can also do is you can either cut the yarn if you feel so inclined, or if you want to use the yarn and wrap it around the end of your safety eye, then you can use it to stuff. So, for example, here's the inside of the eyeball, and I just took my yarn end that was the center of the amigurumi ring and just wrapped it around here, and I'm going to use that as stuffing. And then that way you don't have to worry about putting polyfill or batting or whatever you're using to stuff these. Old clothes, that's good too. Recycling's good. You don't really have to stuff them. I mean, they protrude out of the head, so like you're not really going to have to worry about it, and any pushing in, it's going to just butt right up against the fabric here. So these eyes are bigger than what is called for. Also too, I would say your best bet if you want to make a few toys, or if you're interested in making toys, is get a set of safety eyes. I actually bought this pretty recently because I was working on another project and I needed to have bulk safety eyes. These are from Amazon. If you're not shopping Amazon right now, you can find safety eyes from independent crafters too. I got this a little bit ago. So, up to you where you want to shop, and you can get different size eyes. This particular kit comes with 6 millimeters up to 14 millimeters. And I find that that's a good assortment of shapes or sizes for what I need, because I'm working on different things. I also work on different types of frogs too. So, it's good for these tiny ones if I need something. Actually, these are 10 millimeter, and I think that this will probably be what I end up using in the end on this guy right here. So 9 millimeter, 10 millimeter. In the cartoon, he has real beady eyes, so it's up to you and whatever you prefer to use. So once you have the eyes, obviously you're going to want to attach them to the head. I would use the muzzle that you're sewing on as a guide. And I usually, what I'll do is I'll take the large, let's see, where I fastened it off here. You'll notice I didn't, actually I did do it on this one. Most of the time I won't do like a slip stitch in the next stitch over. For these I did because I wasn't sure exactly how I was feeling about it. If you don't do the slip stitch and you have that sort of like step that happens when you fasten something off, my recommendation is make sure that you're pointing your ends towards the muzzle and sewing that on the inside. No one will see it there. For this particular one, I did the slip stitch. I do what I like, so I change my mind all the time. So for this, I did the slip stitch, but I'll still, when I attach them, make sure that that end is on the inside and butting up against the muzzle of the frog when I attach it. So that is about where I'm going to end today. So that if anyone out there, I know a lot of you guys that are watching are people who I know in real life. If anybody out there is making one of these, that way you'll get a chance to like kind of put things together. And I'm all about doing things in steps. What we'll do next time, I'll probably be doing it on this big guy here, is we'll go ahead and do the arms and the legs, which I'm not going to mod those, but we'll do the arms, we'll do the legs, and then I'm hoping by next week when I come back that I'll be able to show you both this back as well as a modified back, to give you an indication of what I'm thinking of doing, because this has always been the way it is, and I don't know, it feels kind of grandma Afghan blanket. They used to call them Afghans in the 70s, but anyway, it's like a crochet, it's just like double crochet on the back. I thought it might be cool to try to see what kind of effect I would get if I did like bubbles on the back. I haven't quite figured it out yet. We'll see how it goes. You know, it's hard to maintain focus these days, so you know, baby steps. But yeah, so next time we'll do the arms and we'll do the legs. If anybody out there is working on them and you decide to jump ahead, let me show you what I finished here. So I had the mouth and the muzzle done, which I'm gonna go ahead and sew, and then I have both the eyes done, both the eyeballs, and then right before I hopped on, I did both the arms. So in the pattern, you attach the arms first, and then you make the little fingers. So let me show you. The arm is basically just a tube, and the fingers are just like a little crochet arc that is done off the end here. So it looks like he's got little hands. And if you're like, Stacey, what the heck? His arms are so stubby. He's supposed to have stubby arms. He's supposed to have long legs, but beefy thighs and stubby arms. And anyone that knows me and has come to my house and seen my corgis knows that I love my little shorties. So stubby legs and stubby arms, I'm all about it. So that's about the size of one of his arms done double. So you can see the difference right there. And then once I attach these, then I'll put the little fingers on once they're attached. Because also too, because crochet in general is done in a spiral, you're going to want to make sure that you stuff these in just a way and zhuzh them in such a way that, you know, they look like they match-ish. So there you go. And then I'll just whip stitch them to the row here. And also too, like, keep an eye on your landmarks. So like, let's say I want to put this guy right here. What I'll do is I'll measure across the back that same row, so I know that this on this side, it's roughly in the same place. And this will be a big boy when he's done. So that's about it for today. Hopefully the pattern is pretty easy. I haven't had too many questions about it. As far as like errata or whatever, I haven't had any of that. The only problems people seem to find with the pattern are confusion over how to connect the top of the head to the top of the eye bumps. And I did have a couple people reach out saying, I don't understand why my frog looks funny. And it just so happens it's because what they did was when they were reading the pattern, right here where it says row 5 through 26, single crochet in each stitch around, they thought that that was row 5 and row 6. So they didn't they had like 2 rows of body, and then they started tapering off. So then he was like super duper short. Yeah. So those are the only 2 things that I can think of. But if any of you decide to do the pattern, like I said, it's free on Ravelry, and there's a link on my Instagram. So if you're interested in making it, you can. It's free. And yeah, if anybody has any questions, I will gladly answer them for you. So I will see you next week, because this helps keep my mind off of crazy things, and I like to be busy, and it hopefully will give me the motivation to get my army of frogs done, but also work on some other projects as well. So if you have any suggestions on projects or things that you might want to see done, please let me know. Right now, after I'm done making the frog and doing the tutorials for that, one of the other things I'm thinking about doing is maybe doing a tutorial on how I'm going to attach some pin loom weaving together. So I know that for our spinning guilds, a lot of us had learned how to do pin weaving with the Weave It or the Zoom Loom. And late last year, what I did was I made 91 squares out of some hand spun yarn that I spun to make a shawl. And because I was so busy over the holiday, I didn't get a chance to actually attach those squares together to make a shawl. So I'm hoping to make just a massive shawl out of all of them. But in order to do that, I'm going to have to crochet them together, and I'm going to have to decide how I want to crochet them together. So perhaps I can do some pin weaving tutorials and show how I'm going to attach those squares together. So if that's something that you might be interested in, please let me know. So yeah, so that's it. And I guess I will see you all